I
Sorry.
I understand why they're meeting in the apps. I think that they're going to find in time that only meeting in the apps is a mistake, because there are certain things you cannot do on your phone. They don't know that yet. Okay, there is nothing as good as getting a hug from Mama Bye. Nothing. There's nothing as good as holding the book in your hand. There is nothing as good as sitting down with a friend and, blowing up because your relationship just ended, or whatever your thing is that you need. And I say that because we just came back here in Knoxville, and the first thing that everybody was clamoring for was, where are our spaces? Where are our meetings? Where can we gather? Because they haven't had it in so long. But those apps have been there and they're on them. But you reach a point where you need the interaction versus just the conversation.
Now, sure, I want to toss something out, more of a question than anything else. One of the reasons for wanting this cross-generational conversation is because so many of the leather generations don't know what it's like to have a place to meet, other than the bar or the insanity of an event. Yes, we get to see each other, we get to hug, and then it's off to the next thing. Rarely at an event do we have time to stop and smell the leather, to actually sit and socialize. But what I honestly don't know is that a thing of the past? Is it an issue of we won't know until we lose them? Kind of like, a good beer or the local library. You won't know until after it's closed how much you miss it. But many of our generation doesn't know what it's like to hang out in a leather space that does not have a contest attached to it, or
And
it's not
that is,
trying to sell you alcohol.
yeah, and that is something that I believe they're going to find, that they don't know what they're missing until they get there. Right?
Yep.
We started the slash meeting. Now it's held in a bar. Okay, it's a bar restaurant. Okay, but it's not about the bar. You didn't go to the bar and hang out with leather. You went to the bar because that's where they were. Now slash meeting isn't necessarily leather, but I run it, so it kind of does. It kind of is. And the people that show up go, I didn't know I needed this until I sat down in this chair, because slash is a confidential safe space. The bottoms can sit there and say whatever the hell they want. It never leaves that area. And so, we can ask the questions we can't ask our tops. We can ask the questions we can't just ask at some event because somebody might overhear it. Okay. And that's not something you can do on those apps. It really isn't. Because even though you're used to it and you grew up with it, you never really feel it's safe, especially not considering everything that's going on with the information stealing. You cannot feel safe on your phone or on an electronics the same way you can sitting face to face in a space is a sanctuary.
How many people within this group here have never been in a safe space that is not an event or a bar? Because I'm not sure even that some of the people here have a point of reference.
Use your applause reaction if you have not. Sue is applauding.
New York, again, I can reflect on the area where I grew up. New York was famous, as was Chicago, and even Dallas had a few, for SM nightclubs. It was a fairly rare phenomenon, but it wasn't unheard of in other areas. Atlanta had the Sanctuary for the longest time. Baltimore had the original Playhouse, now another Playhouse. But New York had something, a place to go, literally 6 nights of the week. And each one had a different atmosphere that was the place to hang out, not just play, although you could. It was the place where you could have conversation. Ginny Graham Scott wrote two of her best known books, hanging out at Chateau 19. You could go and meet someone. You could go and learn. You could go and talk. You could go and feel free. As I watched the events grow, because for us in the late 80s, you either went to IML, IMSA was a brand new phenomenon, or you went to Living Leather. And Lil was the place that we all saved our money for every year, because yes, there were some classes, but the lobby was the place to hang out until 2, 3, even 4 o'clock in the morning, doing nothing but just talking and greeting people. And I don't know.
I've been saying, I'm sorry, Mama. I've
Cece, jump in here.
I mean, here's the thing. The value and need for those places, in my estimation, is never going to go anywhere, because as leather folks, SMers, BDSMers, Kinksters, however folks are engaging in the lovely things that we do, we are all subscribing to like a law of a country that nobody else knows exists. And whenever we get to walk into these spaces, that those laws are the norm and they're adhered to. You know, I can walk into this space and my slave can sit at my feet and nobody's going to have a problem with that. I can't do that at the Thai restaurant. You know what I mean? There's always going to be a need for a space where we can be living this letter of the law that we have created for ourselves in this world of leather and kink that we want to live in, right? And so those spaces are always going to be needed. I think the problem, which you hit on a little bit, is that we take them for granted. We don't realize how much they're needed until they're gone. And these are labors of love because we don't invest back. And it's often one person or one group of people or one family or one board giving of their spare time, and often they're not spare money, to make these places exist for us. If we don't support them, then they eventually go bankrupt. They can't afford to keep running. And then all we do is complain and say, oh, well, now we don't have that place. Like, I live in Seattle and it is heartbreaking to have the Cuff turn into a leather or a gay bar. You know, it sucks that we can't go in there and be our leather selves. But what did we do to stop it? What are we doing now to change it, right? Like, we have to respect the effort that it goes to keep these places running and really put our money where our mouth is in terms of, or even our time volunteering in terms of making those spaces by community, because we all benefit from it, but we don't know how much we do until it's gone.
Courtney had her hand up. Youngin, say something.
Well, I wanted to add on to what Cece said. I mean, I know you guys have seen the community here. Mom, you've been a part of it for a long time. And the overwhelming thing I'm seeing is, yes, those of us, and I don't mean to use this derogatorily, but those of us who are not just Kinksters, who believe in the community that is, you know, and like I said, I'm very early in my leather journey, Mom knows. The community that's there is not the community that those who want to be involved in this need. And I think we're seeing it, you know, I'm talking to friends across the country and they're seeing the same thing. With the onslaught of 50 Shades of Grey, we're seeing way more Kinksters coming into the community than those who are really wanting these safe spaces, because for them, it's not a safe space they need. And for those of us who need it, it's starting to become something we need, we can't find.
Yeah. Don't disagree at all. Mama, I wanted to riff off what you were saying. You've heard me say for a long time now, all the best conversations happen in the smokers area. Master Banner has been very patient. We're going to get to Master Banner. Sir, please go ahead.
Right, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, see, here's the thing: is that what are we doing to let the next generation know that there's a place there? Because from my understanding, I might be like one of the very few who is actually going out into vanilla spaces and telling those people that they're not alone, that they have history. Here's a video of Mama Vi. Here's a video of IML Jack Thompson. Here are the places you can go. Here are the events you can go to. Here are the books you can read. And that's, that is our, that's our responsibility, because they don't know. I can tell you this, I've been doing that for years. There is a massive interest in dominant, submissive, master slave, total power exchange relationships, not just BDSM, but specifically power exchange relationships. I do 2 classes, one on just general BDSM, another is just talking about dominant submission. The dominant submission class is probably bigger than the BDSM one. So there's a massive interest out there, but they don't know that we are there. And part of that is because look, where do these why the reason they're going on these apps is because you're dealing with individuals who ever since they were born, they have been online. And so when they start to ask about, well, I have these urges and feelings, and they look, they go to YouTube, they go to Instagram, they go to Discord, they go to TikTok, and that's where they're getting their information. That's where they're finding it. And if we aren't there, they won't find us. And like Discord is a way to build a community on your phone. And there are massive BDSM MS communities. Like I have one that's been around since 2000, at least 15. It's in the thousands. And no, it is not attached to any leather or BDSM. They don't really even know it's there. They just built it. So that's what we are facing, is that we aren't, for whatever reason, we have a lot of people who are interested in this, but they don't know how to find us. And I think one of the most important things is that, if we want this to survive, we have to go out to them and say, it's okay to do this. This is safe. This is something you can do in the real world. And here's the events you can go to. And here's the history attached to it. And that's, I don't have, that's what I've been doing, but I've seen it. I've had an individual who I actually, they told me, it's like, you changed my life with your presentation. And they went to Discord. They went to a Discord channel. They didn't go to mass. They didn't go to, any other events. They just went to Discord. And I don't know how to change that. But yeah, I think the biggest thing, I think one of the most important things that we are not doing as a community is we are not reaching out to the vanilla people. And that's why we're losing out to Discord and TikTok and all these other places. So that is that's my.
I want to ask you a question. Actually, I want to ask any of the TikTok babies here, any of the Discord babies. Yes, you have said you have formed a community online. Do you even need a physical place to gather?
Yes.
I haven't built any of these. I don't have a real desire to be, to be a part of those. I know that they're there. I've been involved in one, but I don't know. I think it's a case of some of them feel safer on there. I know there's a lot, and when I'm involved, there's a lot of trans people there. And I think for them, they feel a lot safer to find partners and to express themselves in a safer environment. But I feel I think a lot of the pull of it is because there's a lot of, you have the ability to kind of create stuff like in this Discord, and like there's a DOMs channel where only DOMs can talk about stuff. There's a Switch sub channel. There's a ton of different places where you can go to chat with people privately. There are ways to like watch the movies together and things. I don't believe that. I think that if given the opportunity to go to an event or go to space, they would feel that space is better. I think that they're doing it because that's what they feel is, that's what they have. That is the easiest way for them to find their like-minded people.
I think you bring up a really good point, Master Banner, because I think, you know, when you were coming out or in the time after that, shortly after that, if you wanted to explore these types of feelings, you had to leave your house, right? You had to go find a magazine, or you had to go into a scary place, you know, or you had to go find some, you know, there was this sort of, you kind of had to be tough. You had to take a risk to go and do these things, right? And now, because there is this access behind the veil of a computer screen to experience almost everything, I think it's both safer and not safer, right? Like, I think
absolutely.
It's safer in the sense that you're not taking those risks. You're not putting yourself out there. You're not, I mean, in different ways, I guess, but not in the same, you know, having to go and take that on the street risk. So more people are going to be doing that. Therefore, we're going to have these floods of more people because it's a lot easier. And when something is easier, more people do it. But who's going to actually translate that into the space, how you're going to take it from the fantasy into the reality, still requires a safe physical space. Right? If you want to meet that person that you've been flirting with a bunch in person for the first time, I'm going to probably want to look for a leather bar to do that at, or a munch, or somewhere where I'm going to be surrounded by people who understand, and maybe somebody who might know somebody is not great might tell me, you know,
Right.
The internet has no way of doing that.
Exactly. We're doing, you know, and that's kind of what we started doing with the smoking event. We have gear, leather, and cigar night at the local LGBT bar once a month, and people find us on FetLife and come to smoking, and it's just a social hanging out in the bar, old school. So we're doing that. We got a lot of hands up. Can I get to the hands?
Please.
Okay. Boot Black Amber, please.
Unmute myself. Yeah, just to kind of piggyback on some of this other commentary and speak as a younger member of the leather community. My journey is still fairly new as well. And I just moved cities from the community I had built myself in. And I'm having to rebuild that now in Portland. And personally, I feel like I found my way in enough to know where my access points were to find myself here, for instance, but that's hard to do as a person who might be interested in leather and doesn't know where those access points are and doesn't know who to ask. When I talk to like my peers who have curiosities, they don't know what it is, they don't know the history, they don't know how to get to it necessarily, because there aren't those spaces, because we no longer meet the same way that older generations did. And it's not that there's not a willingness to meet. I think there's a very real longing for the tactile experience of our community. And I think you see that in current trends where people are reposting, you know, lesbian photos from the 90s and you know, these fashion, the aesthetic of leather is kind of reverting back to like old school looks and all of these different ways. And so I think like a lot of the people in my generation, we really want it, but the world has changed so much that we won't be able to access it the same way that you did. I don't know that is a possibility necessarily, because these bars have died, because these spaces no longer physically exist, or they're closeted, so to speak. And online is where this information that's your first access point, you know, in the chat rooms, in the niche corners of the internet where people are asking these questions. And I think the disconnect between the older generation and the newer generation is just the lack of digital history and the accessibility to find those places online. And there's so much good stuff that like I personally know about that is just like sitting in people's homes and their closets, and people don't have access to it because that's where it is. And there are no longer spaces for people to bring their histories out of the closets.
I disagree there. You're on a forum for one of those right now.
Absolutely. But I think there's opportunity to bridge that gap. I think we're building those bridges, and just there's a lot more work to be done there.
And
Mama,
you point out something also that we haven't even thought about in this conversation. If we were having this conversation in 2019, then this would be the conversation that we were having, and the whole conversation would be about the things that we're talking about. But now it's 2022, and 21 days is habit forming. 2 years, 2.5 years now, we have only been at home. 2.5 years now, these public gathering spaces didn't exist. We have all in some ways evolved to meet that need. We've all done things digitally and virtually we never thought we were going to do on the internet over the course of these last 2 years, right? So that's a whole nother layer of it that the whole world is sort of weeble wobbling on coming back from. Like, hey, I survived so long here. Why do I want to put on an uncomfortable corset and heels and go out to the club, you know?
Absolutely.
Close.
And I
Close.
think that with the pandemic, that hunger for physical space has also grown exponentially. The places where I do talk and meet people online, they are meeting in person. They are forming specialty groups. But, you know.
I have a question for you, Amber, since we're here online. Is what we're doing right now an aid in bridging the gaps in generations, doing this
Absolutely.
virtually? Okay.
Absolutely. Having the opportunity to sit here and share space with people in my community that I've never met all over the country, that's huge. And, you know, I think a lot of communities did pivot that way during the pandemic with, you know, Zoom classes and workshops. And I think it has changed our access in a really beneficial way.
Thank you. Well, I know locally we started doing education on Zoom, and everybody was like, we want live stuff. We want live stuff. So we're moving to live stuff. So I think the spaces are there. Mama, do you have anything?
Well, as one of the old dreamers, creating that space where my community is safe is very important to me, because it's something that I hope to pass on to the next generation. When I look at Judson, and Matt, you've been on Judson, you know it's more than just the library buildings, it's the library family. Do I want the library neighborhood? You betcha. But the space is there. If somebody wants to sit in the backyards and read, or walk the labyrinth, or have a camping in the, in the pergola, or have a small group and have a picnic or a barbecue. Or as my local munch does, they meet at a restaurant, and then it's chocolate cake and dessert, which I blame Courtney for because I've gained 15 pounds because of her baking. It's, it's a hangout space at the library in the center, and that's what it was created for, at least in my mind. That place where you can come back and you're safe. But as I said, I accept the fact that the generations are changing, which is why I need this discussion.
I have a note here. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mama.
There were a lot of dreamers. Those places that they created, unfortunately, are beginning to close. I think the play space in Nashville is still open. but I know that the places in Seattle have closed. There's still at
I
least
mean-
one bar in Dallas, and thank God the Texas Conference of Clubs, as far as I know, still has their campground, but they're getting farther and farther away from being leather spaces and being open to anyone just to pay the bills.
Right. I mean, the bills are the main concern. And what we've started doing in the Puget Sound is just having house parties. We're moving to unpaid spaces. You know, we alternate between people's houses and we try to make the spaces happen where we don't have to spend the money, because the dungeon spaces, I mean, in Seattle right now, if you walk into one of those stores that sells souvenirs on the dock, they'll have writing crops that say 50 Shades of Grey in the souvenir store. Like, it is so touristy. It's a part of the Seattle tourism that the places that are dungeons are like $50 tickets. And I'm sorry, I'm 24/7. I don't need to pay $50 to go live my life in a different room. Like, that's not what I'm planning to do to spend my time, you know? So we go into homes, and that might be the other thing that's happening, is that folks are, especially as we built this like pod mentality over the pandemic, that folks are sort of picking their groups and families and connections that they want to do things, and they're renting, you know, big Airbnbs in the woods and having weekends away and things like that, maybe on a more, like a less public, more curated way, which is how we also then find more like-minded people who are doing it the way that we're doing it. Because I know
We're back to runs.
Hands up in
correct,
the corner I
correct.
see here, but I can't quite tell who that
I
is.
see a wolf and a Courtney hand and a Shar hand.
Yep,
and
I'm working on them.
a hand.
Mama, I wanted to say there's a great big dissertation in 2 volumes on the shelf near you.
Yeah, there
And
is.
in it, Dr. Rubens specifies that our areas relied on cheap, rundown spaces. That's
Correct.
where all the leather bars were. And we are being currently gentrified out of everywhere. 1763 in Atlanta is closing in September, I believe.
No, that's what we were
Look
asking
at
about.
the Center for Sex and Culture
That's so
in
sad.
San Francisco. They went from their initial rent 12 years before they closed was $4,000 a month. They were forced out of the neighborhood at $14,000 a month. When
That's
they
what happened
finally
to the
went, we just
CSPC.
can't do this.
That's where 1763 is going. That's where, yeah, lots of stuff. And Scott, I bet, can comment on that. Amber, you're good, right? We've got you. You want to put your hand down, please? Shar?
You asked me to keep up with the chat, and there have been several comments. Should I go ahead and do those now?
Yeah, let me get one real quick because somebody messaged me. There's a note here that says that Adam Barron has joined us. He is doing the documentary on 9+, and I wanted to make that comment so I can catch up with chat.
And forgive me, Adam, I owe you. Big time.
Alrighty, I will go through what I have here. Some Rebel Sumpig has said the problem is TNG won't be able to find what is now closed. That's why the apps are important to make connections. But there are some of us that in the older TNG that are seeking the info to learn how to build and make the safe spaces and make them accessible. Apparently he was too old for TNG, but he is a new generation. Smoking area and cigar socials are where he found the truth on where and what to look for at his first event. Courtney says that she's in several of those discords. Kodiak has asked if anybody can link their discords. Toy Molly mentioned that it makes it hard to reach out to the vanillas if you go strictly online.
Yeah,
you can't find the new people if you aren't where the new people are.
Also said the classifieds, which I think is funny.
Yes. SAC or SEC, I'm not sure which way that's pronounced. said that Discord can be really helpful for those with accessibility concerns. That's very true. Yes.
Very valid point.
Toy Molly says that there's a Discord for their Vanguard leather group where there's a mix of younger and older, which is good. I like it. I love it when there's a mix. Peg mentioned that TikTok has a bad reputation for a good reason. Lace asked Toy if Vanguard Leather was the group in New York. Courtney pointed out that there is disinformation in TikTok, which Peg agreed with. Molly continued that conversation. Peg says that she started exploring online 2 years ago, for 2 years before stepping into the real time, and she had to unlearn a lot. And that's my big problem with it too. It's very difficult to learn what you don't know on your own. It's very true. Master Jim and Dee, I believe, responding to holy, it's gone. The name just went away. She's sitting right there with you, Vi. Thank you. It just, her name just completely disappeared from my head. I'm so sorry.
No worries.
Right. I believe in response to you said, ding, 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 COVID changed us. COVID made us all a little more hermitish. Even the extroverts like me. Let's see, that's all. Kodiak says, I won't lie, it was hard for me to go back out to events after lockdown. But the one thing I enjoyed that came out of it was the ability to join classes on Zoom from all over the country. If there's a way to make classes a hybrid, it seems to work out best.
We were talking.
That's what we're going to be doing. And we'll do
Peg
that.
says that they lost a local venue, and then the leather house was dismantled. Master Jim and Dee said we had a fabulous conversation itself about the exciting Paragon cooperative that Chuck Terry and
Right.
Kai Terry
Hi, Trey.
are working to create.
Savannah, I believe.
Courtney says that most of the discords that she's found are Gorian affiliated. I'm on your side. I know those. But she's on one of the FetLight discussions, though. I think it says Discords, though.
Yep.
Back in the 80s, from Toy Molly, back in the 80s, classifieds were one of the few ways.
I was yes, Toy. That's what I was saying. You said classifieds. CC basically said we're going back to runs. We're just kicking it old school.
And before I hop off and pass it on, I would like to say that I do not discount online at all. I spent the first 7 years of my journey of finding kink online in Gorian rooms. There was a time when I could have quoted you 21 books from John Norman, page and verse. So I did the online thing, and even now we started the Slash group, and the first thing we did was start a Discord for it, because you still need to have the communication. So the communication part of that is awesome. I think you really have to have both and have them interconnected, where you have the Discord, you have, I don't do TikTok. TikTok makes my head hurt. But if you're one of the TikTok people, do the TikTok for your group. There's 1,000,001 different ways to chat and talk to each other, figure one of them out, and make sure you're staying connected.
Right.
Our Slash Discord is full of all kinds of shit that has absolutely nothing to do with our kink. Nothing.
Yeah.
But we stay connected to each other that way.
Yeah, is that Master Wolf there? Who's had
Yeah.
a hand up for a while?
Courtney's next, and then Wolf.
Sorry, I had to unmute myself. I think, you know, to piggyback off the COVID comments in the chat, we're seeing a lot even now in our local community where they don't want to go to mensas and those kinds of things. And the education that we're seeing over and over again is that the next generation, and I was one who came in right at the end of the TNG cutoff more than a dozen years ago now. I was right at that 28, 29 mark, and there wasn't anything for TNG when I got here. There wasn't. It was mostly older leather people, and we're seeing what I'm hearing in our local community is the TNG group has completely split from our local community. They don't attend mensas. They don't attend anything else. They're doing their own thing over there. And what I keep hearing over and over again is people are still afraid of being outed. People are still afraid to come into public spaces or even into private spaces because they're so used to the doxing and the misinformation online that people are starting to be afraid to come out in public. And I don't know how we as a community can ensure the safety of those spaces and make it safe for people to be who they are around other people without the fear of being doxxed. That's the big issue I'm seeing with the online world is you can be anybody as a keyboard warrior. You can be anybody and nobody has to know who you really are. But when you come into those spaces face to face, now you run the risk of having people know or having the wrong people know. And I don't know how to really alleviate that. And I'd be interested to hear how everybody else is alleviating that because I'm seeing it a lot with our local munch.
It's a really good question. CC?
That's a tough one. I mean,
Right?
Wolf go, because he's been waiting for a long time.
Wolf's next. I'm on it, Mama.
I think that in those if that was something that I was concerned about, I would be looking to do sort of in-home munches would be the stepstone in between for me to sort of get some community that I felt like I could trust, even if it was a small amount to sort of build and build and build and build on that.
I agree with that, Stacey, with a private invite,
Yeah.
vetted, yeah, where you can slowly grow it and control it, quantity, not quality, or
Yeah.
quality, not quantity.
Correct.
I'd also
Wolf?
like to remind everybody that if you're going to a kinky event and somebody sees you, they only saw you because they were at a kinky event.
Correct.
Sir Wolf?
So I just wanted to bring in, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. I just wanted to bring in to the conversation just my observations that it seems to me that the gay leather community has sort of gone back into the shadows again. And that there seems to be what I've noticed online, just in stuff that I've seen on Facebook and a little bit on Discord and everything, is that there's almost a separatism again between even, you've got the gay leathermen versus the non-gay leathermen. You've got the gays against the lesbians, against the bis, against the trans, we all don't know what to do with the queers. And I'm just wondering if there's, because, the gay leather was the vanguard and it's where everything originated. And if we're not seeing them as much as we used to, I'm wondering if that's not leading somewhat to the disappearance of the clubs, because they've backed off back into the shadows again, and the separatisms in the communities, it's also running in the generational gaps. You've got the boomers versus the millennials, and the Gen Xers are caught in between going, hey, what about us? And now you've got the Gen Zs coming in and they don't want to listen to anybody either. And it's like, we've got to get along if we're going to make this work. If we're going to keep our community alive, we've got to come up with a way to bridge these gaps. And I think that, these, like you were talking, the clubs closing and all that, I think part of that is that the clubs are falling into the gaps from where we're all separating from each other again. And we need to find a way to bring all of our communities back together. And I'm I'm asking questions. I don't really have many answers or anything.
Thanks, Wolf.
I mean,
That's a
have,
question. I think that's a question that needs to be brought up.
it
You bring
is.
up a really good point too, because you mentioned that the gay Leathermen were the vanguard folks, and we lost an entire generation of them.
Yes.
And while we have this sort of sense of them going into more privacy, and I'm sure there's a lot of truth to that, there is also the fact that this entire generation of mentors in a system that was sort of built on mentorship, right? Like that's how it was worked. That's how it was safe. That's how it was vetted, is you had to be sort of mentored in. And then all of a sudden there just were not mentors there to carry and care for the amount of exponential growth within the community. Certainly not once 50 Shades hit and all of a sudden everybody and their uncle was coming out, right?
Right.
So I think you bring up a really good point there as well.
I've got a question for Scott, who I see has his hand up. So I'm going to throw this and we'll get to Scott when we get to you. How many eagles have we lost in the last 10 years? That's my question when you come up.
Oof.
Most of them.
Yeah.
Master Jim and D said, I think the problem is too many choices. There is so much that dilutes the broader community's attention that makes it hard to build critical mass for public event spaces like we are discussing. It's not a problem unique to Kink Power Exchange. Conventions can draw, but a club needs to pay the bills week to week.
Correct.
Yeah, God knows I
Absolutely.
understand that.
Absolutely.
But there's a new hand up in the
The
corner.
next hand is up and I cannot pronounce that. So if you want to
Greetings,
go
Scott.
ahead.
Hi, Mom. It's Terrell.
Hey, Terrell, I thought the face looked familiar. The name was not helping me though.
I go by Oki now online.
Hi, Oki.
Okay, so since the discussions has been focused on leather, I can participate in that, but I wanted to contribute something as far as the rope bondage community is concerned, specifically the international rope bondage community. And currently I've been participating in rope lounges, which has been led by Nawashi Kana in Japan. And he's a student of the now deceased Akechi Denki, who is the person who actually came up with the fancy chest harnesses that we usually see in photo shoots. So what I've noticed is the dissemination of information and it being actually accurately disseminated is happening internationally, where we have people in our group participating literally from around the world, from Australia, Europe, United States, and Australia, and South America as well. And we're able to have meaningful discussions where we are able to critically analyze basic, not only skill sets, but concepts. But more importantly, now that the COVID pandemic is slightly easing up, we've been able to have intensives where they have been able to come to places like Canada, the United States, and Australia, where we're able to basically evolve that whole growing culture that we've developed into skill sets, where we're able to actually not only learn basic skills, but also advanced concepts. And I've been doing this for over 25 years as far as rope is concerned. And it has been a valuable experience. And I can say that it is doable. With that being said, I did reopen up my rope school, which is actually going to open up back in September, where I am going to actually begin to talk about these particular ideas that we share. So I think it can happen, but I do think that we also have to have something in place where it can facilitate those things. I do like the question on leather, and I don't want to take up too much time, but I do have something to contribute there. But I just wanted to share that.
Terrell, are you talking about a physical school or an online one?
Yes,
So then you do need a place, so to speak.
yes. I've just recently acquired a place, and so I'm renting a place from a business, and I am going to actually use a new education model where we are going to be able to do something that isn't so one true way like, but it is something that it's going to be a social learning process. So it's going to be more egalitarian as opposed to having somebody be the sage on the stage and try to teach.
And I suppose I should clarify, because of the generation I grew up in, kink-wise, when we said leather, it was a kind of catch-all term. The proper term may be kinky, which I always say the library is far more than just leather.
Yeah.
If it could be fetishized, we chase it. But for me, leather is that catch-all that includes anyone that is not in the missionary position for the purpose of procreation.
I'm glad you did bring that up. And this is where things kind of get interesting, because we are looking at Japanese rope bondage, and specifically, we are learning from people from Japan, and there is very little understanding of American leather in that respect. So that's where things kind of get interesting. We are sharing information on leather and kink. However, we haven't codified anything or put anything, as far as put a label on it.
Now, if you want to have a few of those classes in the library, I've got a very big tree, and we can put up, some nice boundaries around that. And by the way, please bring me back some more shunga when you go back to Japan.
But that is another really great point, and that's the classes, right? Like, it's amazing that we're able to do this stuff online. And over the pandemic, we've been working and had a very global community through our various organizations, and we've been able to reach people who, we had somebody attending classes who was in Israel, who was like, we can't have anything like this here. So this is the only way we have access to this. For those of us who are privileged and fortunate enough to be able to do these things in the real world, there is something more to be gained from practicing in person with another human body. That is just not the same. You can only go so far in what you can learn through the screen by yourself without another human body. You're lucky maybe you have another human body in your space with you to do the classes with, but I think that's another reason that we need spaces, is for the education piece and the piece of it that is beyond theory and into practice.
I agree. I firmly agree with that. Master Banner?
Yeah, I just wanted to answer about that question about the fear of being outing. So I do classes at anime cons, and so I have audiences of like 100+ people, and I've been doing this for about 4 or 5 years, and every time I say please don't take photos or video, but there's always someone who doesn't follow that rule. And so to those people who are worried about being outed, well, first off, the easiest way is just come out of the closet, because then you don't have to worry about it. You can't be outed if you're out. And like, it's going, I don't think it's a big deal for everyone. I think that there are some people, who have very sensitive jobs. Like, I could lose my job. I could lose my job if because if they found out, if someone were to try to go on some campaign against me. But I've been doing this for 5 years now, and nobody has. None of my presentations have been put online. you know, it's, I don't, and here's the thing, other thing, if you're afraid of that, then don't be on Facebook, because, you know, Facebook has way more information on you than, you know, than anything else. And like, you know, I don't think it's a big deal. I think you're just going to have to deal with that you're going to have, and we need that. We actually do need people to come out to the vanilla people and say, hello, I am such and such. This is my real name. This is my scene name. Yeah, I like, some people can't, like, it's just, you know, like, look, if you want to do this, that is the cost. There's no other way, you know.
I mean, I think there's a space there to talk about when and where we live also, because we have a lot of privilege living in the times and places that individuals of us do. And even in this country, there are places where that privilege doesn't exist. So even saying that statement, I find myself feeling like it's woefully lacking. So for me, I might be in a position where being out and proud is the safe thing for me to do, but it's very possible that for somebody else, that's not an option. Certainly the place that I see it the most, because I do some work with the NCSF, the National Coalition for Sexual Freedom, is when there are people who are going through divorces and trying to take children
Kids.
from other people.
Yes, that was
use
that
kind
was
of
mentioned in
thing.
chat.
Yeah, and use that kind of thing as a reason to not allow the children to be there. So there's certainly some gray space in that.
So maybe to amend what Master
There
Banner was
is,
saying, if possible, please
Right.
come
but
out.
no, like, no, but this does not work unless you're willing to put that on the line.
Okay.
It just, there's no other way. I mean, if you can't do that, then you need to be, you know, helping the people who are actually doing that, you know, like, because there's no other way, you know, that's because we need that credibility. You know, I can't just be like, hello, I'm, you know, master, you know, gamer word person, you know, on a text avatar. You need to have someone who can go up to people and say, hey, you know, this is what I do, and there's nothing wrong with that. And this is my name, and I'm here to answer your questions, show where it is. And the cost of that is that you could be videotaped, you could be, you know, get your picture, but, you know, like, there's no, like, that's how you reach people. That is the cost. And I'm sorry if for some people, maybe they can't do that. That's fine. But
those who can, we do.
then you need
Right.
to be supporting, the people who will do that.
And I agree. And we've heard it around the house, Mama.
Yeah,
Each
yeah.
one teach one. Does that ring a bell?
Now it's each one teach 20.
Thanks, Master Banner. Scott?
I finally found how to get the hand thing. I couldn't find it for the longest time. Before I move on to the comments here, Mama, can I get a commitment from you to set a time and date to meet with Adam before this call ends?
Yes. Adam, what are you doing Sunday? Where are you?
You're here he is.
I'm free if you are.
Sunday is a good day.
Okay.
What time zone are you in?
East Coast.
Okay, I'm Central. So I've got an hour's leap on you.
Perfect.
We'll figure the exact time out. I'm thinking like 2, 3.
Wonderful.
East Coast. We'll figure it out.
And this is such a wonderful conversation because this really relates so much to what I'm doing in my films and my work. And also, like, so much of this is resonant as someone who throws a queer sex party that is kink inclusive, but also like encompasses different genders, and this whole discussion of spaces is paramount because, like, in New York, we do not have many spaces, that we cannot build new spaces. Paddles just closed a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
And, you know, my whole thing with the post-pandemic period is, you know, because we have these archaic laws from the 80s, from, you know, that shut down bathhouses in places, we can't build new spaces that could be more COVID safe, more accessible to people with disabilities, anything, we can't build it. And so we're just in this terrible stuck position. And, you know, during the pandemic, we pivoted to Zoom sex parties and things like that. And, you know, that was good for a year, and then we kind of burnt out. And, you know, coming back to sex parties, we're now in this world where not just with COVID, we have monkeypox now, and everyone, that's going to completely, people have to really be prepared. It's going to completely decimate everything in a way that, you know, is unprecedented, I think.
Been there once, ain't doing that again.
Yeah.
Thank you, Adam. Scott, you want to go ahead?
Okay, so now that I've got that, do you guys want me to actually send you a Zoom invite? Because I can do that. 2 o'clock on Sunday?
I'm thinking 2, which is 1 o'clock mine. I've had more than enough coffee and I've already gone outside to water the flowers.
After I hang up with this, I will send both of you a Zoom invite. I will be there as well.
Great.
Okay, so there were several things that people wanted. Matthew, I think you wanted the count on how many have closed.
How many eagles have we lost?
I would much rather go with where are the spaces, because I think that's easier. That's an easier list to go through. So what's left is the Providence Eagle, the New York Eagle, the Baltimore Eagle. You have the Bike Stop. You have the Ramrod in Fort Lauderdale. I believe you have Touche in the Eagle in Fort Lauderdale. Okay, and then there's Touche in Chicago. You have San Francisco Eagle. I believe it's the Fault Line in LA. Other than that, I'm not too sure.
We still got an eagle in Seattle.
Seattle.
I have an eagle in Dallas.
We still have an eagle in Dallas.
Eagle in Dallas. Yep.
So it's easier at this point to name all of the ones that exist.
That's
Right.
sad.
If you go out and you look at, the Fault Line and Dallas Eagle are closed. Oh, okay. Thank you.
I knew we lost Atlanta.
Yeah.
Yep.
Didn't know we lost.
Yeah, that one I knew. But if you go out and you look on Wikipedia, it lists where all of the eagles have been
Yeah.
all over the world. And it's something like there's been 50 of them or something like that, a huge amount of them. Anyway, so to move beyond the eagles, there was another one that had asked about where harnesses came from. This came from a class that I saw at IML in 2004, and it was put on by the Leather Archive, and it was Tom of Finland who was doing drawings of gladiators having sex, because in order to get around censorship laws, you couldn't draw men having sex, but if you drew it as a historical depiction, you could get around the censorship laws. So he drew gladiators with harnesses, and people just emulated what it was that they saw. And so monkey see, monkey do, that's where harnesses came from. There was another topic about coming out in kinky. I did a class at the Fetish Fair Flea Market. I believe we did this 3 times. It was actually coming out kinky. I did that with Princess Callie. We did it as kind of a male version, gay male version, and a female, because she, at the time, she was also a pro-dom, and the problems that she runs into being a pro-dom, and the fact that she's even gotten death threats and things like that. So we sat and we talked about what is appropriate of coming out and when, why to come out. And we talked about several different reasons, and some of the reasons of being able to come out are some of the simplest reasons that a lot of people do not talk about, which is because if you are not comfortable enough in order to talk to your primary care physician about what your sexuality is, that's a problem. And if you get into a spot where you need some medical attention based upon your sexuality and you do not have an open and direct conversation with your primary care physician, that can be a problem. Someone that I know years ago, he was into prolonged bondage and liked being tied up for an entire weekend, go in bondage Friday night, come out of bondage late Sunday. And in order to do that, he needed catheters. And one time he ended up with a urinary tract infection, didn't go to his normal doctor, went to someone else and talked, and that doctor basically shamed him for what he was doing and said that he needed to get, psychological help, that this wasn't normal. And the thing is that eventually he ended up with a situation which was really dire. He ended up getting raped, and the person that raped him basically mutilated his genitals, and because of that, he never got the medical care that he needed, which was based upon the fact that he was getting a doctor that judged him. So it's important that you get your primary care physician. There is the CAP list that's on the NCSF website. For those of you who do not know about this, it's the Kink Aware Professionals list. So there are resources that are out there. You can also try and get resources that are word of mouth as well. One of the people in my area, he is a member of the community, and he doesn't like being able to tell people that, he's part of the community and kink friendly because, well, if you're his patient, he can't he can't play with you. So that's the kind of either neither neither thing. So sometimes it's a blessing to have someone that's part of the community that is kink friendly, but it can be also a curse for them because they don't have the ability to be able to play with who their patients are. The other part of it is that when it comes to having space, what Mama was saying about people who are the people that put on events and things like that, and the dreamers, as she said it, those people are typically the ones that have to step up and put their legal name and social security number on it. And I'm the same way. I've had that same situation. So we're always needing people to be able to come forward and have a person that is being able to do this. So it's coming down to figuring out whether or not you're a person that can be out. I will say, having had my foot in both communities, both the gay male community and the pansexual community, the pansexual community is far more closeted than the gay male community. And part of the reason that I always looked at it, and this is what I presented in the class, is that we're already out as a freak anyway. We're gay men, we're already looked down in society. When we come out, coming out in leather is just another level of out. So, I, having been part of my leather club for many years, we've had a number of people who've been members of the club that have to be rather secretive about their involvement in SM because they're school teachers, and really you have to sit down and look at your individual circumstance and find out where your comfort level is. Beyond that, we'll to move on to another part of this, because I think there were some other people that had kind of talked about this as well. When we sit and we talk about the older generation and the younger generation, and the saying was, well, we lost that generation. You have and you haven't, because a good portion of them are still around. And if you went to an AMCC run, you would see a good number of these people who are there, who have been, back in the 60s and the 70s. And, I sit down and have a lot of conversations with them. Part of the things that I know about history is by sitting down and talking with these people and finding out the things that are going on. So they're not completely gone. What I find within the community is that likes tend to go with likes. The younger generation tends to go with the younger generation, and the older generation tends to go with the older generation. And people seem to cordon off with their interests. I myself am a person that has kind of been in both worlds. The world of, because when I came out in 1990, that was pre-internet. I was also 21 years old and looked like I was 16. People were willing to have sex with me, but they weren't willing to go beyond having sex. And it was I had a very difficult time finding my way into this community. But by the time the internet came along, I was able to sit online and actually chat with people and have a conversation where I couldn't do that at the Ramrod in Boston because the music was too loud. People were just looking to get off. There was no opportunity to sit and have a conversation. They really weren't interested in what your name was. They were only interested in getting off.
Right.
So it wasn't until you met people online was I able to find a way into this community. And it was through online that I was able to do that. So when it comes to where the community has been and where it's heading, we don't really hang out in bars anymore. And it's not just the leather bars, it's the gay community as a whole. We really don't hang out in bars because they used to be our community center. Everything that we did circled around the bar because that was the only place that we could go that was a safe space. You couldn't be out at work. There were no places that you could be out other than where these bars were. And it was kind of a little safe haven. Now I'm out at work. There's a gay and lesbian alliance group and I can go meet with other people who are from my company and connect with other people in my company. When I started at this company 30 years ago, I couldn't be out. If you were, you could be fired because there were no laws that were protecting you. Now there are laws that are protecting me to being able to do that. So to me, it's not just a question of, because this is one thing that I constantly hear, the leather community is dying. It's not dying, it's changing. And it will grow and change. And I'm going to give another example. When I was Mr. Boston in 2004, I had a website and I got a random nameless, faceless email from somebody that basically looked down their nose at my leather uniform because that was an old guard. Because anything that went beyond jeans, a white t-shirt, a belt, black leather jacket, gloves, hat, boots was not done. It was basically drag. It was costume. And it was like, well, this is my generation of what we're doing. That's fine that that's you and you want to take it back to the late 60s, early 70s, and that's fine, that's you. But this is what we're doing today. I was at an event a couple of years ago and there was the younger generation and I was sitting, it was touted as a kink event. And the majority of the people in the room were in their underwear wearing a harness. And there were two guys that were there in spandex underwear that was floral with matching floral spandex harnesses. And I just looked at this and went, oh no, we're not going there, are we? Oh no. And I found myself doing exactly to these guys that was done to me with the website and the nameless, faceless guys. Here I am, the older generation looking at the younger generation going, oh, that's just not done. This isn't the way it's done. And I caught myself just kind of like, nope, they're doing it the way they want to do it. They're doing it how they want to do it. And in 20 years, these guys in the floral spandex underwear with matching harnesses are going to look at the younger generation going, oh no, they're doing it wrong. Back in the day when we were doing spandex harnesses with floral underwear, we were doing it right. They're not, oh, that's so wrong. Because, as it goes on, it's going to change and grow and go in different places. When I first came into the community, there was nothing with the puppy community. It was a very, very, very small little group of, very, very rare. Now it's kind of the entry level on the gay male side.
It's the gateway.
It's a gateway, and it's going to grow and change. And who knows, you may find in 10 years, people will look back at that and turn their nose up at it and say, you know, oh, that's just so, you know, so not done these days. Or it could be, it collapses all into that. We don't know. We don't know where this is heading. And with that, I lower my hand.
Some comments on topic from what Scott just said.
I think this comes down to kids. What are you gonna do with them?
Yep.
And you hide the smile because our forebearers said the same thing about us, and you sort of hide the smile so they don't know that you're smiling and going, yeah, that was me 25 years ago. But kids, what are you going to do with them?
Boot Black Amber says healthcare with shame, healthcare without shame by Charles Moser. SEC was kind enough to post the link to ncsffreedom.org resources. That's the list that CC was mentioning. Okay, and Mama, CC, you guys have anything on that?
On which?
The NCSF is our go-to, and in many ways our behind the scenes for a lot of the laws that are changing on a local, state, and regional level. Very few of us really know what the NCSF does. We know we're supposed to contribute, but we really haven't stopped and looked at all of the work they've been doing. And I would recommend that everybody do so. They're a pretty amazing organization.
Absolutely.
They really are. Yep.
But
CC?
we've got long-term hands up here as well.
Sure,
Yep.
we have
Intellectual Daddy.
The biggest issue that I've seen since I came back is there's very, very little accountability within spaces, within the online community. Nobody's doing due diligence to find out what's really going on. They just are listening to what other people are saying and jumping on the bandwagon. And that's just not the way that it was back in the 80s and 90s when I came into the community. You know, when I came in, if you did something wrong, you were sat down, scolded, and you may get your ass whooped as well. That's just the way it was. So you could learn. There's a lot of misinformation, and I don't think there's really any way to deal with that other than, like, I've had a conversation with Master Arcane where he encouraged me to create a website and put out the information, because if more of us come out and put out the information online, then it will kind of weed out all the misinformation.
We all know the internet, everything's true.
Yeah. Now, on the opposite side of that, I've seen some really amazing things happen during the pandemic. Like last year, I attended 3 different conferences on Zoom. I went to In Leather We Trust, I went to Leather Rain, and I also attended MSC. And that just wouldn't have happened without the pandemic, I don't think.
Yep, absolutely.
There's more mass meetings that are turning to hybrid. Ann Arbor mass meeting is going hybrid. The Birmingham is, South New Jersey is. With the bars, I know that Minneapolis still has the Eagle Bolt. They have the Saloon. They also have Monroe on the Row, and they also have Ground Zero. That's it.
Thank you. Mama, comment?
Okay, what were you going to say?
Okay.
This is a response to several comments. The first one is when we talk about being out, we have to remember that the DSM-5 TR changed the listing as BDSM, any type of fetish, S&M as a pair, and it's no longer paraphilia in 2009, 2010. And so at that particular point, people were able to not have to fear what would happen. There were less legal repercussions, but that's going to vary state to state.
Yeah.
And as far as other factors such as citing morality clauses, that's going to also factor in the level of participation. To be more personal, I was a local, regional, and an international title holder, public school teacher, signed a morality clause and participated the best way that I can, use my real name, and judged other teachers who wanted to participate. I did not ask them to do what they were, what I did not ask them to be visibly out.
Right.
And I think that's something that's an individual choice. And I think everyone has something to contribute, however they would like to contribute. And so I want to make sure that everybody understands that, because we all have something to give. You should not have to be out if you don't want to, but you don't have to be closeted either. It's your choice, just like how you participate in our community. And so I just wanted to go on and voice that, considering the number of struggles that I've had at home and at work, and the amount of support that I've gotten wherever. So please take that into consideration when making that decision. With respect to the NCSF, I had the opportunity to work with them too as a board member, and they do a lot of work. And not only that, you have to remember that they participated in several Supreme Court cases overturning the Communication Decency Act in 2001 against John Ashcroft. And they're also doing a lot of things local, advocating for people who are losing custody of their children. And so it is a worthwhile organization. And so that's something, and I'm glad that you did put the website up, because you do have an opportunity to actually become or participate in that as well. Oh, and the last thing is, yes, I would be happy to come to do classes. And I have more time that's free. Before I was doing the, super smart academic thing, and now things have freed up, and I can come up and do classes. And my big question to you is there a wing, or is there anyone doing research on rope bondage? And
I wish that would actually, Terrell, be you.
So, okay,
Yeah.
I would be happy to get that started. Part of my research agenda now is queer theory. So,
because I can only, as a librarian, get what people have written, recorded, programs, or things that can be shared. There is not a large shibari contingent in this area, so there isn't a lot that is shared. I have Midori's books. I have, the Naughty Boys books. But that's that's a horrible thing to say.
I understand. Here's what's crazy, Mama, is that some of that it does have direct ties to Japan. And a friend of mine who is working on they work on people. It's like a Hall of Fame of Japanese rope artists. There is an American crossover that starts out in the early 80s in the West Coast that has an association with Tony DeBlas, and it's really unclear. And so it's called Nowapedia. And so I think there is some overlap. In addition, there's also overlap with John Willie.
True.
And also Irving Claw, and where you do have people going over to Japan or Japan having influence by those Western type of ties. And so I think that there is enough information to actually try to put some basic stuff, rudimentary stuff together.
Because the classic John Willie tie that you saw on his Pony Girls in the 40s and 50s was an incredible rope harness. Now, of course, it was used to attach the pony gear. So most would never really have thought about it in terms of shibari or Japanese rope harnesses, bondage, etc.
Hey,
So-
Mama, can I bounce in here for a quick second?
Yeah,
Yeah, I just wanted to comment that the fact that Devil's Mask Society in LA does do their history class, and they're also doing it every other week discussion as far as they're showing actual shibari videos, anywhere from traditional like Akechi Denke, Hajime Ponoko, all them, to actual porn style videos. So there, and then that's what I'm also trying to work on as well, with possibly doing an annex, would be to kind of connect all the pieces between the Western and I see that the Japanese style Seminawa and the Western style of tying. So I volunteer as tribute. If you would like to connect with me on the back end, that is the large empire I would like to build too.
because my question is, with all of these wonderful videos, how come I don't have any?
I'm getting them. I am collecting them.
Make you guilty. How
Blue
come
Moon?
I don't have any?
I'm collecting.
One more thing, Blue Moon, H, one of the founders of Devil Mask Society, they're still translating stuff. They've also been heavily involved with Nowapedia, which is Japanese, which is actually has its foundations in Japan. As a matter of fact, Ugo from Japan gave that portion of the site to her, which is also connected to Smpedia. And so she has translated many of the very different primary source documents and has provided that on her website. And so that is something that I would like to bring her in on that, and because I think she would be an incredible resource.
Either
Did
of
we
us
just see the birth of a new annex?
Either that or just, a few more parties at the library. It's a big damn yard.
We didn't know about Nowapedia. I just pulled it up. It looks so cool. I'm really excited to look at it.
Yeah, they added me 2 years ago. Yeah.
So did we just see the birth of a new annex?
Yeah, well, Kodiak's in the infant stage. We're just going to be adding a few things on his shoulders that he didn't know about yet. And Blue Moon, I want it all. I want stuff I didn't know I wanted yet. That I
Yes,
want
ma'am,
that.
you got it.
All right.
We got Char's hand up.
I think Char's going to catch us up on chat.
Okay.
I can do that too. I actually
Oh.
have a couple of
Okay.
things I wanted to say. But it's from chat. Sue said, as a new dominant, I was in the library not too long ago and had asked if there was a dom and subs, a group for new doms and subs to meet with seasoned ones. And apparently there used to be, but it had fallen away. So how do we as a group pass the torch on if no one has picked it up? As somebody who is a partner of somebody else who has just done this, I know the answer to this and it sucks, but I'm going to give it to you anyway. If you want it, make it happen. Because if you wait for somebody else to do it, it will not happen. I've waited 17 years to start ACEs. Okay. I wanted ACEs the day I went home from my first leather event which was approximately 3 months after I found the real world. And, because the education wasn't what I wanted it to be. I'm one of those people, I want to know everything. So if you're going to bring a presenter in front of me, they need to know their shit. And I cannot do, it can't be that I can do a Google search and know more than the person that's teaching my class, which happened to me twice at Self. And,
It doesn't have to be a terrible experience either. Also, I think sometimes all we need is permission, right? I think we encounter imposter syndrome a lot in the community. And so we say we have to wait for somebody else to put together that, or we have to wait for somebody else to reach out to the people that they know, but there's no reason that you can't. And more often than not, you'll get a yes, because that's the kind of people we are in this community.
And what I would absolutely 100%. And what I would suggest to you is that if that is something that you truly need, create it. Please feel free to talk to me or Matthew Carey about the slash meetings, which is a fabulous place to start. Because if you create it and you announce it on FET and you let people know it exists, they will show up. And they want those things too. And yes, you will run into people that tell you things just like Cece said. You're not real. You're not doing it for the right reasons. You're not this. You're not that. And as somebody who I'm one of the worst people to give advice, because I don't give a fuck what other people's opinions are. I just flat don't. Okay, you are doing just fine. Go find the people you want to learn from and invite them into your community. And do what you've got to do to make your world the way you want it to be.
And the library has a guest room.
There you go.
Just thought I'd mention that.
And as to the catching up on the chat, Toy Molly mentioned that there's a lot of segregation and disconnection in the community. I believe that was to Sir Wolf. Sir read that one. Courtney said that it's a really great point, Sir Wolf. I was talking to Mama about how when I started in the lifestyle, leather was not a place for straight women. Oh, I understand. I do. Sex said, my feelings are that we are missing rituals in our community. When things are fractured, stressed, and polarized, we need more rituals to form our connections. But that's just me. Courtney replied, this is actually kind of a long discussion.
Yeah, let's just the highlights. Just the highlights. Questions.
Okay.
If you guys were having a discussion on the side, yeah, don't read the whole discussion, please.
Thank you. I needed that. Rebel Sunpig would like to know more about the rope group.
Char, did you freeze or are you reading?
I am trying to catch up. There's been a long conversation going on, so I'm
While you're reading, I'll speak to Sue. You have people here, right in this room right now that you can say, hey, I want to do a group. And some of us, I'm sure, would come and, chat. And if you get 4 responses, then spread us out. And there's 4 months, and then ask anybody that comes, well, who do you know that would come? Because it's all about that networking, right? And we're here because we're hungry for community and for each other, right? So I would say that, experience is unnecessary in this endeavor, just asking. And, I'll throw myself out there. I don't know that I have the information that you're looking for, but I'm surely happy to come talk to people.
Absolutely. If we don't know it, we might know somebody who does.
Sure, exactly. I certainly know a lot of people. So if you tell me what you're looking for, I know too many people. So if you tell me what you're looking for, I'm sure I could point you in the right direction.
The joys of a hive mind.
Okay, I believe this was part said in statement to what was being talked about at the time. Boot Black Amber said straight people have the privilege of being able to stay closeted with their kink and the ability to control the narrative legislation around what we do in community spaces. I fear there's a straight washing happening in our community, akin to the gay panic of the 80s and 90s, where we are no longer welcome in the spaces that we built ourselves. Molly agreed. Polly disagreed.
I don't know. The one that I built is open to everybody.
Right.
Yeah. Star, while you're scanning, Scott, go ahead.
One of the things that was talked about here was the imposter thing. So for myself, this was a Saturday night at the Fetish Fair Flea Market. I was sitting with the other board members of NELA, and we were just sitting and talking, and they didn't really know, the gay leather history. And I sat there and I started to talk about it. And then all of a sudden the entire table was quiet, and they were all listening to what I was saying. And they go, "You should do a class on this." I go, "I can't do a class on this. What do you mean? You just gave us the class."
Yeah.
And it wasn't even in my own head that I even had it there until I sat there for an hour and talked about everything that I had learned. And, everybody in the entire place was hanging on every teeny little thing that I was saying. So when it comes to your own personal interests of what it is that you are interested in, whether or not it's shibari, hint, hint, that, whatever it is that you are interested in, know that you have information that you can pass on to others that other people would be interested in. So always, try and not, knock down that imposter thing. The other thing that if there are people that are looking to start organizations, I've helped start a couple of organizations over the years. I was one of the founding members of the Bay State Marauders. As far as, and this is the one thing that I will always say, that when it comes to clubs, groups, and organizations, find people that are of like mind, that want the same things that you do. You're not an island unto yourself. That if you want to start an organization, there are other people that are right there along there with you. And, the Marauders are my family. And if it wasn't for the Marauders, I just, I don't know where I would be. The reason why the Marauders started was back in 2003, the internet was coming and people were going out less and less. And I've, found it very hard meeting people and talking to people, even online. And how do you get to know and talk to people online? How do you know and get to know people and form community? And the whole point of it was, that you're not cruising in a bar, you're not trying, searching for sex online. You're looking to get in between somebody's ears rather than between their legs.
Yes.
We weren't doing fundraisers. We weren't doing contests. If you want to go raise money, you can go with Fits Like a Glove, you could go with Enforcers, you could go with the New England Leather Alliance, you could go with Entre Nous, you could go with the Imperial Court. All of these people did fundraising. If you want to go do fundraising, go do fundraising. If you want to go do a title thing, go off and go do a title thing. That's not what we're doing here. You want to hang out and be social and get to know other people? This is what we do. And it really depends on, for the individuals that are here, what is it that you're looking for? What is it that you want out of this community? If you want it, somebody else wants the same thing. Remember that you are not alone. And if you don't know how to start this, there are plenty of people, myself included, that have been there, done that, bought the t-shirt, bought the program, and have plenty of resources to help you start of what you do. I have all kinds of history of all kinds of leather club documents dating all the way back to 1969 and everything in between. And if you want a smattering of how it was done today, how it's being done today and how it was done yesterday, I could send you a whole slew of things. And I have a specific folder because there are many times when people are coming to me going, we're thinking of starting a club, you know, do you think you can help me? And I send them everything that I have. So if there's anybody that needs anything, just tap us on the shoulder. Thank you.
Great.
And with that, I lower my hand.
All right,
Okie,
okay.
Thank you. Scott Erickson, just to piggyback off of that, Scott Bloom's documentary on the Seder Motorcycle Club, the
Yes,
50th anniversary one, is great, and you can get it on Amazon for less than $10.
I think you can even get it on YouTube.
Yes, you
And
can.
Scott is a great guy.
Yes, he is.
Yeah, I've
You-
known him for years. He's a wonderful
Yeah.
man.
We're IML classmates.
Oh, so you're from 2002? Oh, 2001? 2000, right.
Yes.
Yep.
So the reason why I say go through Amazon because it supports his film company. What I did want to let you know about Nawashi Kana's Rope Salon, because it is based in Japan, it is going to be in Japan time, which means that it starts at 1 in the morning and it goes until 4 in the morning. But they do have one that's European time, and it starts at Central Time at 10 p.m. and goes until 1 a.m. So if you're on Pacific, go on and subtract 2 hours. If you're Eastern, add an hour. But I know that I've gotten several requests for information. I just want to let you know that just in case I forget. And so that's the one sacrifice that I do make, is that I am staying up extra late to get this valuable information. But I will go on and make sure that you have the information as well. And Scott, thank you for everything that you said. It resonates with me, and that's all I had.
what was the name of the documentary? Scott Bloom's documentary, The Saders?
the Saders.
Yeah. There, I will go on and put the link in there. Give me 1 second.
Thanks, Okie.
The
Sorry,
Saders
go
is an incredible one. Another was done on the Tar Heels called The Year in the Life.
I just put the YouTube one up.
Okay.
Today, we just got 6 VHS copies of Out of the Darkness, which was done about 20 years ago. Seattle's already coveted. Boston, you heard that, right? So there are a lot of actually very good films out there that are available with very little searching.
Original Pride, The Saders Motorcycle Club. Thanks, Scott. Thanks, Okie. Shar?
Right, Sue has responded. The issue with picking it up myself is lack of experience. I'd be happy to start a group and have it on FetLife, but I have no seasoned people to support it. And I will tell you, as someone who counts as kind of a little bit seasoned, not a lot, but a little bit, and having known the 2 women that are talking to us, if you build it, the seasoned people will find you.
Will come, yeah.
They will show up because you put forth the effort. What I have found, and I don't know how true it is across the board, but what I have found is that when the older generation saw me putting effort forward, saw me digging around trying to find those things, they came to me. And with very few exceptions. Now, I chose to research leather, which is gay male, and I had lots of issues, but I also had a lot of people who sent me other people to tell me stuff about their area and their thing. A lot of you, the older generation, just wants to know that you actually want it. They want to see you put the work in, because unfortunately, it's gotten so bad where everybody steps up and says, give me everything right now. Okay. The older generation goes, yeah, no, you might be dangerous. Okay. So they need to see you do something. And if you do, for the most part, they'll find you. It might take a couple of months, but they'll find you,
Yeah.
especially if you're putting it on FetLife.
Okie, is your hand? Okay, thank you.
Cody asks
DC?
us,
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I'm almost finished. Kodiak said imposter syndrome sucks. It rears its ugly head every once in a while and really makes you doubt that you know enough to teach someone or take part in some activities. Don't let somebody else yuck your yum, guys. It's your thing. There's a place for everybody.
I start every one of my classes by saying, I'm not an expert. I don't know any better than anybody else. I've fucked up a lot, and hopefully you can learn from my mistakes.
It's a real simple, here's what I know.
Right.
Yep.
And that's all it is. Really.
Several people have linked their FETs and their emails for those of you who want to stay in contact. You might want to check the chat, scroll back on the chat some. That's in there.
Char, can you save that chat separately for people? Or for
I am not sure, but I will see if I can find out.
If
I will
it's
figure it out if I
recording,
can.
believe it does save the unless
chat?
your settings are different.
It should
Started
automatically
recording a
save.
little late, but we are recording. What was that, Oki?
The chats will automatically save. It'll download to your Zoom folder automatically.
With the recording?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Not
Great.
only the recording, but also the audio chat that's happening in the chat room. It'll automatically do that. And
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
I just have to go find it. Thank you. Okay, and that seems to be, yeah, that I'm all cut up.
Forgive me, folks, I am getting a bit tired.
Yeah, I was just gonna, that's why I was trying to,
The
we're
meds that I
past time.
kick my ass on occasion.
So everybody that stuck around, you get to find out that the special guest arriving at the library tomorrow is yours truly.
And I hope you have space in the car.
I do too. Because I've
If
heard
not,
all
feel
about
free
how
to keep his clothes.
I've heard all about how the children show up and take things, and I am planning on seeing how that works this time.
There is one master who showed up and left things, all of which need Char's tender ministrations.
Oh, now you're talking my language.
Oh,
Yeah.
tell me more. Tell me more.
There are 2 boxes here. Big boxes.
We are coming right back up with a lawnmower. So if they're too big for the car, we will be back up shortly.
One is going to Seattle. It is the perfect kit to teach about dungeon safety. It's actually it's a very impressive kit put together by Master Ron K. The other is a lot of his old leather that we're still discussing exactly what he wants done with it. Some of it will be shown. All of it has been sitting in the second case for about 10 years.
It will be loved. It will be
I
loved.
just thought I'd mention that.
All right, Mama.
When you have a chance, I want a copy of that kit.
Yes, because we.
That's 2 kids, right? One.
Well, in terms of the health.
Oh, sure. Yes, you got it. Absolutely.
Thank you, ma'am.
In peace.
I was just about to threaten fisticuffs.
And
Oh,
Matt,
that sounds fun. Okay.
Matt, you'll get to see it tomorrow.
Fantastic.
It's incredibly well put together.
Absolutely.
Mama, you go do what you need to do and take care of you. I'm going to leave the Zoom open for a little bit for folks that didn't get a chance to participate.
I gotta go take some pills.
And Mama, I will send you the invite via Facebook.
Done.
Okay, so look for it there.
Folks, I'm going to put my FetLife name in the chat. If you wish to follow me, you will see the announcements for these events.
Oh, fabulous.
And also, if you're on Facebook, you can follow the Carter Johnson Librarian Collection page, and the events go up there.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. I gotta go. Work's early in the morning, but thank you. It's great seeing you all. Thank you all for your knowledge. It's great to see you all.
It was great to see everybody.
Good night.
Scott, fantastic stuff as always.
Thank you.
So sad that you can name all the Eagles easier than you can say the ones that we've lost.
Well, businesses come and go, and there's even ones that have been over in Europe. There have been Eagles that have opened in Europe. So it's tough when you have bars, things open and close and change. And so, like I said, it's easier to name the ones that are still open rather than to go through every one that is closed, because there's over 50 of them.
Yeah, I referenced Dr. Rubin's dissertation, and she specifically says in it that you had to have a certain population and a certain rundown area for our community to have spaces. She specifically mentions us in that, and all of the spaces that we've occupied for all these years everywhere. I mean, obviously New York City's the biggest obvious one, Boston, it's all getting gentrified. And I think, Scott, would you say that the folks that are being rented out of their spaces are just tired and don't go searching for another space? Has that been the case?
What the thing that I find is that, again, our community is changing, where we meet in different ways and in different situations, because it's not just leather, it's the gay community as well, where you have bowling leagues and you have rugby teams and you have baseball teams and you have book clubs and you have all these different ways of being able to connect, whether or not it's through work or many different ways. And so we're no longer centered around bars. It's just not the way that we do things. It just means that we have more choices, and because we have more choices, these places close. What I find as far as within the gay men's community is that everybody wants to be able to go and get, yes, in fact, if you want, I can give you a website on a leather book club. So hold on, let me before I forget that, let me go and get that. 1 second.
Yeah, Scott probably has it. See, we have some folks sticking around. I'm going to stop recording so everybody can feel comfy.